Good day everyone. Here's our performance task about article active attack versus passive attack.
What is article all about? The article discusses the various risks and threats associated with being online. It emphasizes that there are different types of cyber threats ranging from those that damage system to those that steal personal information or credentials. The article highlights the increasing sophistication of modern malware, which can often remain undetected, with attackers with primary motivated by financial gain or data theft.
It categorizes cyber attacks into passive and active types. Passive attacks involving monitoring systems to gather information without altering data, making them difficult to detect, while active attacks use this information to manipulate systems and gain unauthorized access. To counter passive attacks, encryption and avoiding the public disclosure of sensitive information are recommended. Lastly, it stresses that everyone is a potential target, and the attitude towards cybersecurity needs to change with a focus on constant vigilance and protective measures.
Definition of passive attacks. A passive attack occurs when an intruder silently monitors a system or network to gather information without altering the data or system itself. The attacker observes communication channels, scans for vulnerabilities, and collects intelligence. This might involve detecting unpatched systems, open network ports, or expired security certificates. Key characteristics. In passive attacks, there is no active interaction or manipulation of the data. The attacker remains hidden, which makes these attacks very difficult to detect, since the system continues to function normally without disruptions. Example. A common example is footprinting, where the attacker gathers as much information as possible, such as system architecture or user behavior, to later plan a more direct attack. Other examples include sniffing network traffic or intercepting encrypted data. Definition of active attacks. Active attacks involve the attacker actively manipulating, altering, or damaging the target system or network after gathering information. In these attacks, the goal is to disrupt services, modify data, or gain unauthorized access to critical systems. Key characteristic of this is, unlike passive attacks, active attacks involve direct interference with data or systems, making them easier to detect because the victim can often notice the changes or disruptions caused. The attacker is more aggressive, attempting to compromise the integrity or availability of data. An example of an active attack is a hacker stolen login credentials, possibly obtained through a previous passive attack, to log into a system and change settings, delete files, or introduce malware. Other examples include denial of service (DOS) attacks, where systems are overwhelmed with traffic to disrupt service, or man-in-the-middle attacks, where a hacker intercepts and manipulates communication between two parties.
Key differences. Objective. In passive attacks, the objective is data collection and surveillance. Attackers want to gather as much information as possible without being noticed. In active attacks, the object is interference and control, where the attackers actively seek to modify, disrupt, or manipulate the system or network. Visibility. Passive attacks are invisible because they do not interfere with the normal operation of the system. In contrast, active attacks are more visible, as they involve actions that often disrupt or change the system, leading to potential alerts or sign of intrusion. Detection. Passive attacks are hard to detect because no changes are made to the system. This allows attackers to stay hidden for long periods while gathering data. On the other hand, active attacks are more noticeable, as the target system or users may detect abnormal behavior or performance due to interference with the data or services. Example, Passive attacks include eavesdropping, packet sniffing, and traffic analysis, while active attacks include malware infections, denial of service, phishing, or data manipulation. Similarities. Both active and passive attacks exploit vulnerabilities within a system or network. They share the common goal of gaining unauthorized access to sensitive information or systems, either by silently monitoring or actively manipulating. Often passive attacks lay the groundwork for active attacks. The information gathered through passive attacks such as login credentials or network weaknesses can later be used to perform active attacks, where the attacker can cause more harm or gain access to restricted areas of the system. Security implications. The difficulty in detecting passive attack makes them dangerous because attackers can collect sensitive information over the time without the target ever knowing. This data can later be used for identifying theft, espionage, or launching more damaging active attacks. Active attacks are immediately threatening as they often lead to data breaches, system disruptions, or financial loss. Although these attacks are easier to detect, they can still cause significant damage because they are fully stopped.
To prevent both passive and active attacks, it's essential to adopt a comprehensive cybersecurity strategies. So here's our recommendation. First is strong access controls. Use multi-factor authentication. Require multiple forms of verification to access accounts. Example in banking applications. When logging into online banking, users must enter their username and password, that is for first factor, and then receive a one-time code via SMS or email, that's the second factor, to complete the login process. Next is network security measures. Regular security audits. Conduct audits to identify vulnerabilities and ensure compliance with security protocols. Example of this is network security audits. A company performs a comprehensive audit of its network architecture every 6 months. This includes scanning for open ports, identifying unpatched devices, and evaluating firewall rules to ensure that they align with current security policies. Next is data encryption. Data encryption is use encryption for data at rest and in transit to make it unreadable to unauthorized users. Example, file encryption employees are required to use file encryption tools like VeraCrypt or BitLocker to encrypt sensitive files stored in their laptops. For instance, financial reports containing confidential data are encrypted before being saved. Next is regular software updates. Patch management. Keep operating system, application, and antivirus software up to date to protect against known vulnerabilities. For example, regular patch assessment. An IT team conducts monthly assessment of all software and systems to identify which patches are available and which have not been applied. This helps prioritize updates based on critically. Next is user education and awareness. Training programs provide a regular cybersecurity training for employees to recognize phishing attempts and social engineering tactics. For example, in this cybersecurity awareness training, an organization conducts annual cybersecurity awareness training for all employees, covering topics such as phishing detection, password security, and safe internet practices. The training includes interactive module and real-world scenarios to reinforce learning.
Limit data exposure. Minimal data sharing. Limit the amount of sensitive information shared online, both personally and professionally. Example, data sharing agreements. When collaborating with third-party vendors, a company establishes clear data sharing agreements that specify what data can be shared, the purpose of sharing, and the security measure that must be followed. Use privacy settings. Configure social media and online accounts to enhance privacy and reduce data exposure. Example, social media privacy settings. An individual configures their Facebook account to restrict profile visibility, allowing only friends to see posts and personal information. They also limit who can send friend requests and view their friend list. Monitoring and incident response. Continuous monitoring. Implement tools that monitor network traffic for unusual activity or patterns, indicative of an attack. Example, user activity monitoring. A financial institution employs continuous monitoring tools to track user behavior and access patterns. If a user suddenly attempts to access sensitive data, they usually don't. The system flags it for review. Incident response plan. Develop and regularly update an incident response plan to ensure quick and effective action in the event of a breach. Example, incident detection and reporting employees are trained to recognize security incidents, such as phishing attempts or unauthorized access, and are provided with a clear reporting procedure via dedicated email address or ticketing system. Secure physical access. Control physical access. Ensure that only authorized personnel can access sensitive systems data. Example, biometric authentication. A research facility implements biometric scanners. Example, fingerprint or iris recognition. For entry into high security areas, providing a high level of assurance that only authorized personnel can gain access. Use security cameras and locks. Implement physical security measures to prevent unauthorized access to facilities. Example, use security cameras and lock. A corporate office uses electronic locks that require employees to enter a PIN or swipe a key to card to access secure areas, such as conference rooms and IT server rooms. This ensures that only authorized personnel can enter these spaces. Backup data regularly. Regular backups. Keep regular backup of important data in secure locations to minimize damage in case of an attack. Example, cloud backup solutions. An e-commerce company utilizes cloud backup services like AWS or Google Cloud to store backups offsite. This provides additional protection against local disasters such as fire or flooding. Test backup recovery. Periodically test backup recovery processes to ensure data can be restored efficiently. Example, regular scheduled tests. A financial institution conducts monthly tests to restore backups from their cloud storage. They select random sets of data and run a complete recovery simulation to ensure that all necessary data can be restored within an acceptable time frame.